Hi, John. How are you this week?
Good, Elliot. I just got back from Missouri with some of our friends, Dennis Lormel and Steve Gerdak and Lauren Core. We did a BSA conference for small banks. First time with live folks in quite a bit. So it was interesting and it was a lot to digest and talk about. So I don't know, the conferences are back full time, but it's been a while. It was nice to interact with audiences again.
Uh, yeah, I've been to a few public events. I haven't been to any conferences yet, and it's nice to be back, but it actually feels a little odd. It's something I'll have to get used to again.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So just today, FinCEN issued a press release that on the 24th, which is we're recording on Thursday, so tomorrow, they're going to push the advance notice of proposed rulemaking for the regulations related to anti-money laundering for dealers in antiquities. And I know you were traveling today, but I wondered, did you get a chance to see that release?
Yeah, we saw it. Is a short turnaround. It's a 30-day window. Understandable because they have an end of the year timeline, and we've already been in contact with our colleagues at the Antiquities Coalition, and so we're going to get the Financial Crime Task Force back together and file some comments. I did see it, and as we've talked offline, I think FinCEN did a very good job of articulating a whole series of issues and questions in the advance notice, so that they can, pursue a relevant and a sort of a sensible proposal here. So I think that, to me, there's a lot of questions. Folks should take a look at those questions, but looking at whether there should be thresholds under which there wouldn't be reporting, how are antiquities financed, how does all of that work? What are various challenges with knowing your customer? Can you know your customer? Are there safeguards? I think, again, some of these proposals will list a series of questions that are fairly broad. These are pretty specific, and so they definitely have done their homework.
Agreed. A lot about the risks related to trade in antiquities as it relates to sanctions and terrorist financing and illicit financial activities. Agreed. I agree with you that it's specific. I also think, and you and I have talked about this. In fact, I think we did a webinar about it some time ago. That there are some things that they'll be able to draw on. If you look at like the pawnbrokers rules and that kind of thing, there are already what I'll call non-traditional financial instruments and businesses that are covered in regulation. And so it's not a blank piece of paper, but these questions are going to provide them with excellent guidance. And as we always do, even though it's a short 30-day reply time, we encourage people who have something to say to send in a comment. It's very clear from this proposal or request that FinCEN really is looking to have good insight when they sit down in the next 2.5 or 2 months basically and write the proposed regulation.
Right. And back in March, they came out with a notice saying, hey, we're working on this. If you have issues that would require potentially the filing of SARs, here's how you would do it. And they asked the question in these series, in this ANPRM, how is an antiquity different from a work of art? Because obviously they're trying to manage that. How should you define the trade of antiquities? I think that's interesting. They also do what I've been cautioning folks that are always opposed to regulations, sort of high level from industries that aren't generally part of this, that it's the chances of it being parallel to banking is basically nil. I mean, there's no chance. And they do offer specific questions that say, how different or what aspects of AML oversight that banks engage in should be included in this space and what should not be. So it gives, entities and people, experts in those spaces, a place to go to say, well, we shouldn't have this requirement that what banks do. We should, potentially we could have the other one. So it gives you a chance to do that. And I think that's pretty important. And that shows that, they get it. They understand that not all financial institutions broadly defined are the same. And we've known that, but perhaps this new industry, new to the BSA, were fearful that wasn't going to be the case. But I think if they can make the case that it shouldn't be exactly the same and why, that there should be thresholds, all those sorts of questions, then I think there could be a fair and rational and reasonable series of requirements, because the antiquities market does need that. I firmly believe it. But I think, there's transparency here. This is an open process, and we should all take advantage of that.
Agreed. So I'll do the shameless plug again this week. If you like this, please listen for us every week. And also you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and anywhere else you get your podcasts. You can also come to our website, and we have a lot of great content, and we encourage you to do that. And if you have ideas for topics for John and I to talk about, you certainly can connect with us. I'm at eberman@amlrightsource.com, and John is at jbyrne@amlrightsource.com.
Yeah, Elliot, if I could add one more thing. When FinCEN segregates the section on issues for comment, here's what they say. So this is what they're looking for. They seek comment from members of the antiquity industry, law enforcement, civil society groups, and the broader public regarding the potential for money laundering, terrorist financing, other illicit activity in this industry. So they're asking everybody. It's a public comment, which I know seems obvious, but I think sometimes you take a look at certain things and say, well, I don't have expertise in this space, so maybe I won't dip my toe in here. But they're actively soliciting broad comments because they want to do this right. And again, I'm very impressed the way this ANPRM was crafted.
Agreed. Well, you have a great weekend, and I will speak with you next week.
Take care, Elliot. Stay safe.
You too. Bye-bye.